Westpoint Church. Sabbath. So, again, I'm a little nervous to be up here because I've never spoken up before.
It'll be okay.
Unlike Maxine, I don't have a PowerPoint. I kind of didn't consider making one, so you're just going to have to deal with me raw, I guess. But the title of my sermon today is Thank God for My Friends. Literally. I'm going to start off with a verse, which is one of the scripture readings that Zoe started off with, which is Proverbs 17 verse 17, and I'm reading from the New King James Version. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Friendships are one of the most valuable things in this world that you can get. To provide support, they're a source of companionship, and it's just another way of God showing what love really is. So, the way I'd like to describe my history about friendships, we're going to start from, I want to say around 2012, 2013. And this is when I met probably the first people that ever started just me going to church in general. So this was 2012 or 2013 at Westpoint Church. And the first people I met was, I met Carl, I met Darren, Donna, Makita, and Bugsy. The first people I ever met in that church. And to be honest, out of all the ones that I probably looked up to the most, it's probably Carlito. Because, I don't know. I like following this guy around a lot. And, I don't know. Maybe I kind of annoyed him a few times, he annoyed me a few times, but, you know, that kind of stuff. Because I was obviously the most, me being like, what, 3 years old? During that time, I was probably like the most childish out of all of them, to be honest. And I just did whatever, whenever. Didn't really care what the people said, to be honest. I always followed him, and I wanted to do things with him. And I mean all the time, literally after church. Now, being the most childish kid in the group, Carl and Dan, always being the two people on me, constantly trying to rage bait me and that kind of stuff, because that's what they do, and they still do it now. Sometimes they still do it now, because, I don't know. Sometimes they're just kind of insane in the head, I don't know. Makita and Bugsy though, probably the ones I never talked to as a kid, to be honest, when I was like 3. Because, for some dumb reason, when I was a kid, I thought girls my age were weird. They were also the loudest people I known back then. They just couldn't stop screaming and everything. And, so I kind of just stuck with Jack and Darren and Donna, because obviously they were way more cooler people than I thought they were already. Now, come through 2015 is the year I first went to school in Gilson College, foundation year. The moment I stepped through the school gates, I immediately saw someone I wanted to be friends with, and his name was Stephen Fan. He was a really, how do I describe this man? He was very, like, I don't know, extroverted, I guess. He had the same energy as me, so we became friends pretty quickly, which I was glad about. And another girl, which is Kaylin Ho. They were my first ever friends in Gilson College, and I'll probably never forget the year I've been with them. It was really fun. So these were my first 2 friends, and most of the time I was just always with Steven and some other guys like on the playground, because, you know, why not hang out with your best friend or your first friend for the first time, eh? I come through 2016 through 2019, which is a pretty long year gap, to be honest. Now in this time frame, I probably made like another like 6 or more friends. So in 2016, I had this guy called Aaron, and during that time, I started to like a lot more things because of my influence from other people. And so this guy, we had the same like main sort of interest, which was history. We always used to like ancient times and that kind of stuff. It was, I don't know, something like dinosaurs, you know? Like, what kind of kid doesn't like dinosaurs when they're like, what, 5, 6 years old? So, and then around 2017, 2019, I had like another 3 friends. I had Kyle, Zaragoza, Ryan Veras, and Alonso Del Cruz. I didn't really talk with Alonso much back then, but we still sort of made contact. And Kyle and Ryan were like my best friends, so I used to hang out with them. So I always talked with them. I did everything with them in around 2017 to like 2018. Kyle showed me new interests, being another very extroverted kid and being another person that really didn't care what he did either. Showed me another interest, which is transformative, which is a pretty old thing, but I'd say it's still pretty cool. Now this is where things get, how do you describe this? Well, you guys remember this, it was 2020 to like 2021. This is during COVID times, when I was around year 5, and then some of these other guys were like, what, year 7? I'm pretty sure some of you guys started year 7 around 2020. So, now this is 2020, where we all hit COVID. Personally, maybe some of the people, maybe it's my device, and some other people would say it's not. But I want to say it's one of the best years I've had in my life. From the span of 2020 to the span of 2021. However, I did lose contact with everyone else though, because, I don't know, time flies by, some people have their own ideals, sometimes they just don't want to be friends with you anymore. But it's okay, you just have to move on, But besides everyone, I did not lose contact with Alonso. For some reason, I don't really know how, we just started calling one time, and then the next thing I know, we were just calling every day for like the next 6 hours after school. It was probably one of the only years that I never regret doing, because I would not have the relationship I have with Alonso right now. So, Alonso is probably, well no, not even probably, he is my best friend that I've had for the past 5 years. I don't know how rare it is to have a best friend that you've had since like, I don't know how long you've had your childhood for, but I'd say 5 years is pretty lucky. And I'm deemed lucky to have Alonso blessed in my life. And I'm thankful that God has brought him into my life because he has helped me through, I don't know, a lot of things. We got closer when we started calling almost every day. And to be honest, we just kind of played games all the time, which I'm not surprised if anyone didn't do that during 2020. And it's probably the other reason which I'm addicted now. Some of you are going to hate this one. But also, I started talking with Makina more. This is also when I met on the Dimitri pitches. I met Daniel and Nikolai. They're not here right now. And, but they were good. They were really, meeting new people, they were a lot more helpful. Definitely more childish when they were back in 2020, 2021. And with these three, I actually have no clue how or why we started talking, it just happened. For some reason, I feel like it just happens with every friend. And like Alonso, we would always call around like maybe Saturday afternoons or nights, playing games as well. And again, I'm gonna say it again, throughout 2020 to 2021, I pretty much peaked my life out from there. Pretty much. It was, I just like hanging out with people, pretty much. I'm just gonna say that again. But why don't I give the whole time of my friendships? These people have showed me things about this world, both good and bad, how enjoyable life can be when you socialize, and when you have people in your circle of enjoyment. God showed me that I only don't have to love my parents, but I can also love other people as well by creating new relationships, being for and with other people, and most of all, expand my trust circle. If I was alone for the rest of my life, and I'm pretty sure any of you who were also, if you were alone for the rest of your life as well, I'm pretty sure you would be at a point where you'd be questioning your own existence. And so in Genesis 2 verse 18 it says, "And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper comparable to him." Some people might say that this verse is related to marriage and to having a partner. But who says the Bible verse is only limited to one meaning? Within reason. God didn't create us to be alone, and He created us to show love to others, to show His character through us to other people like He always shows us. And now come 2025, where I've been through a lot of struggles, met new people, lost a few people, but we got through it anyway. I've met other great people. I met Isabella. I met Maxine, Mateo, Zoe, Finley, Caleb, Brianna, Tristan, Tracy, Jasmine, who's in here, but she's still a really good friend. I would say out of all my friends that I've had, Alonzo and these people in front of me, and the ones who are here as well, probably the ones who have been helping me through this whole year. And it's safe to say I've made unforgettable memories and moments with them. The same way goes for God. God is our Father and our greatest friend of all time, supporting, comforting, and strengthening us through hard and easy times. Like good friends should, He never leaves us hanging on a thin rope and helps us out any time. This verse told me how to be friends with others through God, as well as to be a friend of God. In John 15, verse 12 to 17, this is my commandment, that you love... This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant doesn't know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends. For all things that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. You didn't choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that you ask the Father in my name, He may give you. These things I command you, that you love one another. I want to show off one more story that is related to that verse, and this is during the time of David, King Saul, and Jonathan. And you already know, well, most of you should already know David and Jonathan's relationship back then. You might have read about it somewhere. So this is in 1 Samuel 18, verse 1 to 16, and I'm reading from the New King James Version, so if you guys have a Bible or whatever, if you want to open it up, go ahead and do so. Now when he had finished speaking to Saul, and the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Saul took him that day, and would not let him go to his father's house anymore. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on, and gave it to David, with his armor, even to his sword, and even to his belt. So David went out wherever Saul sent him, and behaved wisely, and Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all people, and also in the sight of servants. Right now this might sound like just like a history of Saul and David and that kind of stuff, but this will relate to Jonathan and David's relationship in a bit. And Saul said, "The man of war," okay, verse 6. Now it happened as they were coming home, when David was returning from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women had come out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, joy, and musical instruments. So the women sang as they danced and said, "Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s." Saul got angry, and the saying displeased him, and he said, "They have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can have but the kingdom?" So Saul eyed David from that day forward. And it happened on the next day that the distressing spirit of God came upon Saul. He prophesied inside the house. So David played music with his hand, as at other times, but there was a spear in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the spear, and for he said, "I will pin David to the wall." But David escaped his presence twice. Now Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but he had departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from his presence and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and became before his people. And David behaved wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Therefore when Saul saw that he behaved very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them. Now because of this, Saul obviously resents David, because he can see very clearly that David is probably like maybe 10 times better than him. And he didn't want to see that. He always thought that, because I'm the king, I should be the best fighter, I should be the best person in this country. You know what I'm saying? So he was afraid of that. And he wanted to get rid of this guy pretty quickly, because he didn't he didn't want David to compromise his placement as king. But, well, I couldn't really find the verse for this. But Jonathan, knowing all about this, spoke to David and said, I'll speak to my dad, see how it goes, and see if I can reason with him. So Jonathan spoke to his dad about it, but Saul was still kind of moody, and he still didn't want to hear any reason from any other people about David. So he also threw a spear at Jonathan as well. And so probably the next day, Jonathan went to David and said, okay, my dad isn't exactly the person he was anymore. You might need to leave this place and, just go in hiding for a bit until it comes to reason or something like that. And what he did is Jonathan gave him his sword. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the swords that David has kept his whole life, because that was his best friend. Now to give your own sword to someone back at that time was probably a great source of honor, and just a sign that you have a great friendship with that person. So the way God wants us to treat our friends and to make friends is to do it with love, sacrifice for one another, and to just also appreciate the people around you, because you never know when these people might be going. I'm standing here in front of these guys. I personally don't want to think when I'm going to lose these guys, because that is dark. But I want to say, out of my whole life, my friends are probably the most valued people I've had in my life, besides my parents. And so, the song that we sang earlier, Gratitude, I have immense gratitude for all of you, just so you know. And so, yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it off there. Thanks.